spelled C-A-L-A-S, is a rice fritter, a donut that contains cooked rice. It is almost exclusively a Louisiana treat, and I have never eaten one. But once I tried to make a batch of calas. During my first marriage, I lived in Alabama for 5 years. My parents came to visit us only once there. I was perhaps 30 years old then, still yearning to be seen by my parents, by my mother, as what? A daughter to be proud of? A worthy colleague? An equal? I was never quite sure exactly what it was that I wanted, but I knew unequivocally that I had never gotten it from her. They drove down from Indiana for a long weekend, staying in our tiny house with my husband and me and our 3 children under 5. I no longer remember where the idea came from, but I had decided to make calas for my mother, Eileen. It's not as if there was a family tradition of calas. We had no ties to Louisiana, but Eileen was always adventurous about eating and cooking, and she had made donuts for us when I was small. In fact, I thought for years that she had invented donut holes all by herself. I was sure that if I made a batch of yeast-raised rice fritters for her breakfast, she would be pleased and, yes, impressed as well. Eileen was as excited as I was about having calas for breakfast. After dinner that first evening, I cooked the rice and let it cool. Now, that was my first mistake. I obviously should have cooked the rice earlier in the day. Have you ever tried to cool a pot of cooked rice? It stays hot forever. Cooked rice could be an excellent heat source in the winter. You touch the top of the rice and you think, oh, it's cool enough to use, but the coolness is only an inch deep. When you turn it over with a spoon, you find that the center is still steaming. So you wait a bit longer and you turn it over again. It takes a long time to cool a pot of rice. Spreading the cooked rice on a platter cools it faster, but I don't think I knew that when I was 30. I was even more impatient then than I am today. I decided I had waited long enough. It was time to proof the yeast in a little water and add it to the rice, so I did. And Eileen, having bitten her tongue for as long as she could bear, couldn't resist saying, I think the rice might still be too hot. I ignored her advice. It was my home, my kitchen. I was a grown-up. And so I did what she had accused me of doing all my life. I cut off my nose to spite my face. I went ahead and added the yeast slurry to the rice along with the other ingredients, and the minute I did it, I knew Eileen was right. I actually knew it even before I mixed them together, but how could I admit it? I spent the night waking periodically to send good thoughts to the yeast. Please don't be dead. Please prove that you were able to overcome the excessive heat of the rice. Please be growing and expanding in the morning. Alas, my prayers to the yeast were in vain. Rather self-centered prayers that they were, meaning, please let me win. When I uncovered the bowl in the morning, the rice was inert. The same volume it had been the night before. The yeast had died. The calas were ruined. Eileen had known, and I had failed. I don't remember what I did. Did I try to deep fry the rice fritters anyway without leavening, ending up with deep fried rice hockey pucks? I might have tried to salvage them by leavening them with baking powder, but I didn't think to do that. Maybe I made sourdough pancakes with maple syrup instead. But the lesson I took from that failure was, no, that's a lie. I took no lesson from it, other than the knowledge that failure can be humiliating. Looking back, however, I see the pattern. I see how desperately I wanted to make my mother proud of me, to have her accept me. It may have looked to the world outside as if I were trying to impress her, but it was not just that. I wanted this one time to get her attention. I was just saying, here I am, look at me. Alas, calas, alas.